Morning. This is a meeting of the Capital Improvement Plan Committee. It's Wednesday, July 31st. Seeing that there's nobody here from the public, I'd like to waive the reading of the public announcement. If there's any objection, none. All right, so there's two things on the meeting. The first is to discuss and comment on revisions to the FY25 capital project / item list. Mark, step in and correct me here if I'm misspoken, but as I understand it, there is an additional approximately $8 million available to be spent as a leftover from the elementary school project. The mayor has asked that we look at projects that this money could be spent towards, pushing $4 million towards school projects and $4 million towards city projects. So I guess the goal today would be to look at the list. In your packet, there's a list of projects that was provided by the school department that would get them to about $4 million, and then look at city projects to do the same.
Just a question on the city projects.
Yep.
Is this in addition to the ones that we already narrowed down? So it would be in addition to this, or will we pick $8 million out of this to fund?
I think we'd be picking $8 million to fund. Okay. Or at least recommend and then send that back to the mayor.
Okay.
And I think ultimately it's the mayor's choice to pick and choose from what we recommend.
Okay.
Before we get talking about individual items, can we talk about the $8 million first, about how it came to be?
Absolutely.
Do you really want to do that?
Absolutely.
In a nutshell, the borrowing occurred in its entirety before the project was known. So there was a excess there, and then we came in under budget. I won't say on time, but under budget. So those two things, roughly $8 million.
So that's not bad that the loan was taken down, interest rates got better, and things fell in place.
Interest rates got worse.
When the loan was taken out, interest rates were
Good.
bad.
No, good.
Oh, good.
Good.
I thought we had, through delays, the interest rates kind of climbed up a little bit.
A little.
A little?
But not like
No.
So more
no.
inflation came down a bit and the prices helped us out. So now we have $8 million that was untapped from the elementary school loan.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. How does that work with the Massachusetts School Building Authority loan in terms of coming in under?
It lowers their part a little bit.
Does it, what's the calculation?
We have a maximum grant from the MSBA.
Right.
And it's not gonna go above that. In fact, we're gonna be below that because the price, top of my head, was it 90 million, 89 and change that we came in at, something like that. So it just saves them a little bit of money.
Right.
And we're going through every time we submit to the MSBA, everything is audited, and then at the end of the period, they do another complete audit, so they're double checking everything, I guess, so that's the portion we're in right now. So we're gonna need a little bit more money to close some things out. I think there's a $2,000 change order for some punch list items that is going through right now. And then there's some work that we have to do post-closure, which is I think I referenced this, and we have $300,000. Obviously a round number guesstimate to close everything out at the elementary school. Yeah, it won't affect the MSBA.
I more mean in terms of, because it is a loan, and we're taking, we're not taking the full amount.
This is money that the city already borrowed.
Understood. But to close out the loan, and would we be able to retain interest and not have to pay interest for it? We basically took out a loan for X number of years for X number of funds. Now we're finding out that the funds aren't needed, the full amount. Is there an option where the city can say, okay, we don't need those funds, can we save money on the loan cost? By not reapplying this money to
I mean,
the
this is
capital
really a
improvements
gen
list.
question, but I doubt
Yeah.
it.
Well, you're talking about taking some of the money and paying back early to
Yeah.
save on interest.
Yeah, like you would do with a mortgage, you're
Yeah.
paying down the mortgage ahead of time
Yeah.
to lower your payments.
Sorry, I have lack of sleep, so I'm probably not too.
No, I give you a couple, I'm a former banker, so.
It can be done, but there is a period of time before we're allowed to do that. And I think
Okay.
it's gonna be like a 10 or 15-year period
Okay,
before we could even consider.
and we're only, what, like 2 years into that period? or-
Yeah.
Do you know, has calculations been done on what that
No.
looks like?
Was the loan specifically for the school project? So,
State law says that you can use any access to do what George was saying, but we've already borrowed it, it would be 10 years before we could pay it back. Or any other, don't quote me on the specifics here, but any other capital improvement that could be borrowed for the same term.
And it doesn't have to just follow benefit to the school department, right? It can
Right.
be city-based.
Yeah,
We're positive with that.
yeah. Verified by the mayor and the doctor. I don't want
And the
this
law,
to be all
and the
on
law
me.
department?
Who?
so are we here to reprioritize the list? Because if we're being asked that, I think that kind of undermines our original decisions, where I don't think as a committee we should do that.
I don't think it's a weird prioritization, I think it's really, because as Rob said, it's really, this is a recommendation, the mayor can pick and choose, he can pick none of the ones we recommended or all of them. But I think it's really the purpose, and I'm just shooting from the hip here, is to make sure that everything, particularly on the school side, is on the list. Because a lot of this, the school has been self-funding her own capital improvements.
Go ahead.
Mark, I didn't look and I didn't compare the list, the mayor handed me a list, presumably it came from you, it's in your packet. Was all of that stuff already on the complete list, were they all requests or any of these new requests?
And that's what I'm looking at.
There was a couple of notes in there.
Well, I think too, just to Dane's point, we recommended 4 items from the school department as part of our recommendation to the council. So are those 4 items on the school list? And if not, if we take something off of this list and add something from this list, then we're reprioritizing the list. If we keep all 4 of those, then we just add some to fit what the extra money is. I don't know if it's much of a problem, but.
I don't think it matters, the written list that we give is the highest priority. I don't think
Yeah.
it matters whether it's on this or not, as long as it's on our
It's on-
capital
on the
list.
list.
On the full list,
Yeah,
right.
because I've pulled projects off of that, as long as it's on the list.
Agreed, and that's why, I just want to have a brief conversation about that $8 or so million, just to understand, because the method by which we went on putting things and prioritizing the full list, I wouldn't say was the most thorough. And I'm not sure if I could honestly make an assessment of this new list and where things fit on our full capital improvements list, now that we actually have a substantial amount of money to prioritize projects with.
The only thing I would disagree on is that we had representation from the school department who spoke to us, Mark, who told us their priority list.
Right.
And I think at minimum, these 4 should be a part of the list we fund, because those are the 4 we decided.
Well, that's why I'm taking a step back,
Yeah.
where a decision was made to use 4 and 4 to split
Yeah.
the money evenly. I don't know how that calculation was made, I'm not sure what the motivations behind that are. And
Yeah.
I know that we mostly had the school department represented at our last
True.
meeting. No other departments, well, sorry, I shouldn't say no other. Very few departments were
Yeah.
represented,
Yeah.
just the one sitting here today.
Yeah.
And John Richard.
Yeah, I agree.
So it was kind of an informal prioritization.
I got you.
So that's why I was just taking a step back to say, $8 million, was it just the mayor's decision to split this in half, 4 million, 4 million? Is that the smartest way to divvy up this money for the best result for the taxpayers? I don't know the answer. Walking into that, this week.
Gotcha.
I'll say this,
School department's representative says it is.
well, again, there's a much larger picture here, the schools are now at $0 over net school spending. There's no tax levy capacity available, and as I said, these are needed on the school side, and we've been self-funding it. So every dollar that we put into capital, which is really a city expense, is a dollar that's not going towards education, which is intended purpose.
It's all the same pot, right? At the end of the day, and I understand, Mr. Hawk.
I would recommend if we're gonna take new school items to add to the service, to the capital project, that we should redistribute it to all the departments and have them get back at 2 weeks, you know, and just update the list.
That's actually, do you mind if I ask first, is there a rush behind making this decision, or do we have to make a call on this money by a certain date? Before 10 years, I assume?
We are in the process of selling this.
We're currently in the process of spending this
The
money.
schools are in the process of the auditorium work, the intercom and clock work, the paving work, the GMS storefront work.
The auditorium is time sensitive, right? Because you've already set up the auditorium for the HVAC project, and if you were to take that
Everything is
down and build it
ongoing
back
right
up,
now
it would
during the
probably
summer.
triple that amount. Well, not triple, maybe double.
And is it a financial restriction that we can't reimburse for a project on the capital improvements list?
Let me ask you this, how are you paying for a project currently if these funds haven't been allocated yet?
School funds.
So, okay, so either way, you're doing the project, it's gonna be paid for, you have the
Right.
money for it, okay.
There's a much larger financial implication.
The mayor briefly described to me how you're funding it, can we tell the group so we all understand? You have funds available, but is it like free cash, rainy day funds?
It's one-time money, yeah,
Okay.
That's being spent on these projects.
yes.
Okay.
So it's either use that money for school purposes or for capital purposes. And in our view, it was necessary to complete some of this work.
Right.
For example, the middle school storefront, the doors don't shut. That's a safety concern. The paving at GHS is, some of it was from the water main break, and then some of it is just taking care of pavement. The intercoms and clocks, you can't run a school without intercoms and clocks. They're both original to the building, so some of the clocks in every classroom are different because they are not all interconnected. So if the class leaves at 10:15, and it's 10:15 in one room and 10:13 in another room and 10:22 in another room.
You have time zones in the school.
Exactly.
I know I'm hammering you a little bit, and did you make this sheet?
Yep.
Is the top box that one-time money that's being spent currently, and then the bottom box the secondary?
Yeah, that's,
So the top box is the money that's being spent,
Yeah.
that one-time funding
so
source.
out of that 8.7 million, which is, at the time, that was the number, there's still a little bit more to be spent, so that's why this is rounding.
For sure.
We're estimating 300,000 to be needed at the elementary school to close out some other work outside of
Mhm.
the project. The middle box with the auditorium, the clocks, the paving, and the storefront is all work that's going on right now that we're paying for out of school money. And then the bottom box is our prioritized list of what we believe needs to occur. And that bottom box is more over the next 1 to 2 years would be perfect. The middle box is immediate.
Can I just ask a question and not sound like I'm hammering you? But you said these were one-time funds, and this capital money will be one-time funds? So why wouldn't we have a list of new projects? Because you're not gonna be able to take that, you're not gonna take this 1.25 million if it's funded and put it towards salaries or something, because it's one-time funds. So you're gonna have to have other projects there. So why wouldn't we have a list of projects that are being funded already?
That gets into the nitty-gritty of the school finances.
Okay.
That doesn't offend me to get to the nitty-gritty, it's just, it's a good question, I think, because what would that one-time funding be used for if we took this loan remainder that could go, and I'm assuming the only path beyond early loan repayment is into the capital improvements fund? What would that money be used for if not from this capital improvements fund?
Other school-related expenses? I mean, this is really off topic.
I mean, it's
I mean, it's-
entirely on topic.
No, it's not, it's
It
completely off
absolutely is.
topic.
We have 8.4 about $1 million that should go into the capital improvements.
But that is
fund.
the mayor's prerogative of where to spend that. He's looking to make sure that everything is on the list.
I-
And then however this committee prioritizes that list, I don't wanna say doesn't matter, it's a good recommendation, there's a lot of input that goes into it, but it is the mayor's prerogative again to decide how to spend it. So he's already said that he's gonna split the 8 million 50-50 basically.
As a member of the committee, I think the mayor could submit a letter as to his motives to help me make a decision. Again, I know you're kind of speaking for the mayor on this.
No, I'm not speaking for the mayor.
You're reporting
I never would.
best you could for the mayor. Otherwise, we have an Excel sheet that has no information beyond.
So this is
three
some of the
columns.
school items, capital items that need to be fixed that we've been trying to fund out of our own money. If you want me to get into it, there's school choice money. School choice money comes from when kids come into the school district or out of the school district. You saw that in the presentation. So right now, we're doing okay, but we've always funded some salaries out of the school choice. In order to balance the school's budget this year, there's an additional, I want to say it's about $600,000 in salaries that we had to take out of school choice. School choice is one-time money and it's diminishing. At its current rate, by the end of the following fiscal year, not fiscal 25, but the end of fiscal 26, we will have no school choice money, that means there's no reserves. So if we're able to replenish the school choice money by not using that one-time money on capital projects, then we'll be able to extend that timeline in the hopes that the SOA or the city are able to come back above net school spending, or the SOA inflationary adjustment is fixed. So we get a pool of money.
Yep.
We can either drain that pool
Right.
in 1.5 fiscal years, or we can not
Extend it.
use school money for capital improvements and extend it and allow the Chapter 70 and the SOA and hopefully the city over net school spending to all kick in, and otherwise there's gonna be consequences and repercussions.
Ramifications.
Ramifications.
Thank you for that explanation. So it's one-time money that you can kind of roll over in terms of
Roll over,
not.
yes, thank you.
Like a stabilization?
Yes.
I guess my question just pointed to the fact that we have 3 items on our prioritization list that we did back when we did this that don't fall under the list that that are being recommended now. The high school replacement toilet partitions are on here, but I don't see the upgrade standby generator, the C-wing locker room. C-wing locker room renovations, is that the $1 million that's gone up from the
That's the $1
$750?
million
Okay.
question.
Okay, so that one's there too. And then the middle school replace metal pitch roof.
It's on there, it's just a different
Yeah.
number. So they have the school MSBA cost and then the city share.
Yeah.
So the 100,
So
okay.
it's gone down.
Okay, so the only thing that's missing is the high school standby generator. That $250,000 is what we recommended. So
Where's that?
Is that what you're
that's
saying?
on our list that we sent to the council.
But that's on this list.
No, it's this one.
It's not on this one.
Mark, it's this one right there.
It's on this one that we recommended. So that's why when I asked the question, my question was, you have one-time funds. We have these projects that are being done by one-time funds. When we look at it, we look back at what we prioritized last time, and my question was like the high school standby generator, will that be funded when we reimburse the 1.25? I'm looking at priorities that we made last time and how it compares to what it looks like now. That's just why I'm asking.
I don't think you should be looking at that list.
You wanna look at the
the
full
entirety of
list.
it,
Yeah.
because the generator is on that list. So
What list are you looking at?
this is the whole city report. Yeah.
That's the list that was submitted originally,
It's
right?
every request
So originally,
So as long
when
as it's
we-
on this list, it's easier to borrow.
American.
again, but what I'm looking at is, we looked at this list last time, we made recommendations that was this list. So everything on this list is on this list. What isn't is this list is not on this one.
I'll say the only difference could be that if the mayor comes to the council and recommends taking a loan out for something, the council may ask, why wasn't it on the prioritized list? But if it's
Yeah.
on this list,
But I guess what,
I understand what Josh is saying.
yeah, but it's on our original
So
list, it's
standby
on our
generator
recommendation list.
Isn't on the one that we
It
want.
didn't make the final cut.
Well, it made our final cut, but it didn't make the recommendation.
Josh,
of $1 million.
but priorities change over time.
But for instance, if I have for my wastewater, I have 5 items for my wastewater, and I have a sewer pump station, it's not gonna make the top list. It's still gonna get done though. We can still borrow the money and do the upgrade, even though it's not on the top list.
I'm gonna say that I messed up.
I'm just
Josh is right,
saying,
I should have put it on here.
Capital Improvements Committee recommended a prioritization list based on what every department submitted.
Right.
And it's not on the list that's recommended now, and that's just the question I was asking. I understand that
No,
it was
I
a full list
understand
given
what
to
you're
us.
Oh, I get, so I'm sorry. I
It's
understand.
not
I
on
didn't
the
put it
list.
on this list.
I thought this was an additions list, not a.
It's not all additions, it's what we came up with that we wanna get done, but I
Okay,
did
thank you
miss
for
the
that question.
the
So this
generator.
is-
But you'll notice that,
But the generator is on the list.
right, it's on that list.
It's on your
not
main
on
list.
the one that we recommended.
Yes.
And I should have put it on this list,
Yeah.
but it's not on this list. But you'll notice that everything ends in, what, 5 zeros?
Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
Guesstimates.
Mark, is the
You can squeeze that in and.
MSBA funding for the middle school roof, is that a definite? Or is that
If
something
it's
you're
funded.
still?
We've applied twice before,
Okay.
and now they just, and we were denied, obviously. Now, they're saying that any roof has to be 25 years old or older. Hey, we qualify because now we're 27 years. That was applied for back at the end of February. When the MSBA makes a decision, I don't know, they've closed it for two, maybe 3 years. So I'm sure there's gonna be a backlog of requests. I have no idea when that announcement is gonna fall from the sky.
Yeah.
Probably ready for some election.
Director Cormier, thank you for that question, because I guess, is there anything on this new prioritized list that isn't already on our capital improvements list?
I think that,
Paving,
that's the one I think is,
The paving,
looks
Yeah.
new to me.
$50,000.
the 40 and probably the 340, because I don't see,
The paving was surprised. That was something that wasn't, that's a result of occurrence that happened at the high
Yeah.
school, probably after our meeting.
but I'm not sure if the middle school road is on here or if we thought that
The middle
the
school,
paving road, yeah, okay, so the middle school road is on there, we got it at
We
300.
put
I have it
a
at
general
340.
grounds maintenance line item in there, that will cover everything.
Well,
How about paving?
well, for the purpose of this meeting, right, because if all of these things are already on our list except for the paving at GHS and the GMS road, right?
I'm not sure the EMS storefront is because
It's not.
we were
It's
working on
not.
that. That was a new thing and we were just gonna pay for it. So
you
that
do,
would have to be added.
you have middle school paving is on our list at $300,000.
So that's the.
We may wanna
What
just
about the high school?
Okay.
up that number and call it school paving, because it's all
Yeah.
one
All tied
giant
together.
school area now.
So make that item 350. Call it school.
You can make it as much as you want.
Well, I'm just going by your numbers, which is 350.
Okay.
Because I do think, take the $8 million elephant out of the equation, and when we just talk about the purpose of this committee and prioritizing this list, providing updates to this list, I don't think there's anything wrong with this committee meeting more than once a year to do just that.
The only problem I have with is the process.
We need to.
Again, and that's the next
on the
question,
agenda.
but we
Yeah.
sit
Yeah.
around, there's 4 department heads that are affecting
Yeah.
10, 12 departments, and they get their say and nobody else does. And we're doing it again, we're allowing prioritization of our list with only
I don't
4
think
affected
we're
departments.
prioritizing anything, we're just making sure that everything here.
And that's why I respectfully
Director
disagree.
Cormier, I do have something for the next bullet item
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think once a year,
That's not enough.
once a year to prioritize the list, but throughout the year, things could be added or updated, they should be updated as more information comes in, so.
I think the task right now is we want to, based on the fact that we have these additional funds to be spent, we want to revise this list so it's at least the most current the mayor has. I don't even know that we have to revise our recommendations that was in the final report, but rather the entire list to say, if you want to choose, we have our prioritizations, you can go by that, but the school department also has these, a couple additional things that are on the
Right.
list. Maybe some costs have been updated, and I think the school department already has a pretty good idea of what projects they would like to spend their $4 million on. And I think the mayor has a pretty good list of things to choose from the city side. And whether he wants to consult with us or other department heads on how they feel about them, I think as long as we're providing an update for the list, I think that's my kind of end game here.
Okay, so we don't have to go through the city recommendations, he already has a list?
I don't know that.
I
Why would you?
recommend redistributing the list to everyone, to
Yeah.
every department head, and have them update it. If the school's gonna do it, we should all.
I agree, and I think for the purpose of, this meeting was called for updating the school department list. I think that one item to be added plus the combination of Peter. I think that's fine, but when it comes to reprioritizing, I wanna have all the information, which we
Yeah.
can talk about the process next, but.
Yeah, I don't have any problem after the discussion with the school department's recommendations.
Right.
So, two things. First, I think it's, Rob, are you changing the number and then just calling it paving rather than middle school or high school or just school department paving?
This is what I would propose. We can suggest it here. I would just say school. And so rather than high school, middle school, we'll, one line item for paving, so we'll combine those. It may only make sense if you're gonna pave.
Yep.
And your new items, I would add them to the list. So right now, really the only new thing would be the middle school storefront.
Is the heat pump, because that came up over the last couple months, probably since we met.
Yeah, we
Middle
met in
school heat
April,
pump?
so.
I didn't.
No, I would guess, replace 7 rooftop condensers, you get that. So the heat pump would be a new item.
Yeah.
What about, I
Those
saw
are stair treads.
Everything else is in there.
the facilities truck was in there?
Yeah,
Is
Yeah.
stair treads in there?
yeah.
Oh.
I can't find stair treads.
It's on the bottom page
Yeah, the bottom of the previous page.
Okay, with the gym room stair treads, yeah. Combined,
Gotcha. Then we have 2 pages.
And then as far as everything, what was the, when we submitted this, there was the nice cover letter that said, it's recommended X amount of dollars. Was it 5% of the total?
Yeah, I think it's 5% of the total budget, so we went through, we came up with our list.
And how much is that now?
5% goal would be 3.9 million to
Okay,
spend.
there you go. So why are you redoing anything? All of a sudden we have that money.
Why are
Or the
we
mayor-
redoing anything?
Yeah, because the mayor has that money now.
Well,
But we're taking-
you've got some new items.
And we're taking $2 million that are associated with the school department too.
No.
Oh, I get you. I
All we're
see what you're
doing
saying.
is adding
We're gonna
and adjusting.
update the list. I don't think we're going back. Again, what I think,
Just needs to be on.
it just needs to be on
On the list.
the entire
Correct.
list. So
I don't think it would change the priorities.
no, I don't think so either. And it's not up to us how the funds are spent.
Right.
That letter's been sent, like,
Yeah.
this past fiscal year's process is concluded. Like, I'm not proposing going back and changing the priority. I'm saying, as we move forward, how much money has been in our capital improvements fund for the past 5-10 years? Now, all of a sudden, we have the proper 5% to work with. I'm proposing this committee work over the course of a few meetings and come up with a more formalized process. That way, in future years, that money can be spent diligently and properly. Or prioritize diligently. Any disagreement?
No.
No, going forward, so I just want to make sure we're not gonna reprioritize, it just seems,
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the goal. I think we
Okay.
want to update the full list of requests. And I
See.
think it's been mentioned by a couple members of the committee that we ought to give other departments at least a short amount of time to, do you have any new projects that you would include on this list?
For priorities.
Yeah, I mean, if, say, the police department, I know the police department didn't have a lot on the list for fiscal year '25, something may have cropped up. There may be an urgent need that they just don't have the funds for, and it's a capital project. They might also then too be able to tap into some of these funds. So I think we have to reconvene with an update and come up, I would, this is what I propose. we go to the departments like we normally would, just to say, you know, we have funds to spend. Do you have any updates to what you requested for the fiscal year 25 list? And that way, at least if there's a pressing or urgent need that a department has, maybe it can get addressed. Again, it's up to the mayor, but at least it can be included on this list.
Rob, you might want to add to, if there's any changes prior to the.
To their list, yeah.
Yeah, I think the master list should be a living, breathing document, because grants come in, priorities change, stuff breaks.
We don't ever get a priority list from the department heads, though, we just get a list of items. So they never prioritize what they want, we did that.
They don't, and we'll talk about that. So,
I just think once you tell people you have money now, the priority list, they're gonna grow.
Well,
and that's
it should.
No, and I think hopefully every department's coming through with, I mean, we look out 5-6 years, so hopefully they're including, you know, they're looking ahead. But again, unexpected things can happen,
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think we want to allow for that, at least
Sure.
in this. So, I don't know, I guess,
Do you need a formal motion to add?
I don't know, I think we need to, however you
Yeah.
want to do it, I make a motion.
To do what?
Well,
Add and amend.
would you mind if you were taking notes on what exactly we're adding to the
I
list?
would, so what I would ask the committee does is we reach out to all the departments to offer an opportunity to provide new requests that they may need or prioritize requests that they've made. And then we reconvene, I will compile a new list based on that, and we would reconvene to discuss that and approve that or to go off to the mayor.
I make a motion that every department updates the capital improvement list.
Thanks, Rob.
Is that what you were asking about
no,
that, or were you asking about the actual change?
I was
to
just
the list?
sorry about the
Yes.
actual, so
The 2.5.
you're asking for two.
We're asking to amend paving to be paving for all the schools. We're asking to add the middle school storefront and to add,
Heat pump replacement?
yes. Is that it?
That's what he's asking.
That's what he's asking for. Why wouldn't we just send the table back to all the departments and have them updated with the
I
updates?
think we
Because-
do both.
Just be done.
We're here, we can add those two things and amend it. Boom, it's on there, so we're good, because these projects are in motion. And then we can also send it back and say, hey, update.
You just don't want to come back.
No, I'll come back virtually.
I think we're in a position where we should do both things.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I think we're in a position where we have a department that came to us with a request to update. It kind of wasn't asked like that, but it's asked like that here now, so we
Yeah.
can say, I can move to add that the paving for the school department be consolidated under one line item, and the addition of the, is the heat pump specific to a certain building, GMS?
I believe it's GMS.
GMS heat pump line item be added, and the GMS storefront line item be added.
Yep.
I would need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion?
The only thing that I would add is, again, most departments, I don't think are treated equally with this process, and this is another example of that. But with that said, it's also one that's dictated by the division of the funding, so I don't have a problem with this particular one, but I have to continue to express that, because I just think it's.
Oh, for sure, and this is, to be
Yeah,
clear,
that's the next step.
just adding it to the list, it's not, it's,
Sure.
I agree.
So we have a motion?
I'm waiting to vote.
Okay, can we vote?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? All right, so moved. So,
And then Dane's,
Dane has a motion that he'd like to request that all other departments have the opportunity to update their lists.
Do we want to discuss this?
I would
as
just
part
like
of
to,
that?
yeah, that's where, Dane, if you don't mind, so, Rob, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, would you mind if I move to the second item on our agenda.
Absolutely.
So, before the motion to update, because we have kicked this off, because of the situation we're in, right? Where this committee now has a substantial amount of funds, a proper amount of funds, according to Massachusetts state recommendations that a city of our size have to spend on capital improvements. I did some research and I went to the town of Westboro, town, right, Dan?
Very nice town.
Very nice town, where I was able to find what I think is a fairly simple but effective template for their capital improvements for the public watching. Right now, our capital improvements list is an Excel sheet that is a one-line item with a few columns that departments fill out, stating the project, the brief description, costs. This template would be with the goal of having basically a binder of these capital improvements that is a living, breathing binder that departments can update as new information arises. That way this committee's working, and the mayor, ultimately the goal is to have the mayor have the best information possible to make an informed decision. So it adds some information such as the project type, the useful life, the location, which I believe their intent is to say, is this going to benefit the entire city or a single department or population? Project priority, they have a rating scale. I think this committee would be responsible for coming up with our rating scale. It has a more formalized project description and project justification. Funding sources, I think this committee oftentimes, the project on this list have different opportunities to, for example, have grants available or CDBG funding for sure. Some of the items on this list qualify for. And it would help the mayor and I think future committees look at what has historically been prioritized and the historical information that we can work with. And as a new member of this committee, I would have looked forward to having this kind of information this past April. So I would like to move that we collect project requests in a more formalized template to be created by this committee.
Maybe when we first started the capital improvement committee, we might have done it was actually, there was a similar form to this that was passed around. I think it's a good idea.
And thank you. And I think if something it doesn't have a completed form, it's not considered on our list. We'd have to have some teeth behind this to make sure that we actually have information. I know the engineer puts a lot of work behind collecting these requests.
I'd add to this, I like this template, but I also think we need to place more focus. It doesn't seem real apparent here, and you mentioned it, the rating scale and how we rate projects. And I think I would like to do more research on that, see what other communities do, because you can certainly place more emphasis on public safety projects versus, say, school projects.
Doesn't sound right.
I mean, I'm just joking. No, but I think that's the most important part of this is how they're rated. And I think everybody, as department heads or others are looking at their projects, rating can get skewed based on personal opinion. So I think we have to have a really concrete system to do it where everybody's answering to the same and scoring on those answers.
Yeah, the project priority, like it says two necessary, like what are the other categories?
Right.
We would want to see that.
Yep.
I mean, maybe it's a call to Westboro just to say.
Yeah, maybe they have a spreadsheet that shows it, or I know my own personal experience, I've seen spreadsheets where capital, there's drop downs and for every, is it public safety, is it, does it affect all residents, who does it affect? And in the end, it produced a score based on those, so it was very in-depth. And I'd be even interested in doing something like that, providing that to every department. And here you have, for every project, you get to enter it into the spreadsheet and answer every question and get a score that way.
Yeah, it's going to help the departments, I would assume, too, just to give more information, and that would help us as a committee. It may help weed out some of these school department ones that are really cosmetic and not, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I need to put the back ones in that.
Well, and I think behind the template too, behind the tool, there has to be a process that works as well where, I think it was fine here. Would have preferred it to be a little more clear that, a department reaches out and says, hey, we have updates to the list, can we make them an ad hoc meetings called? we vote on it. I think that's fine, right? But I think at a minimum, once a quarter, it would not be a burden to meet as a committee and go over the templates and see if there's any updates from departments. And there should be updates on costs, on updates on funding sources, on priorities, so.
There'll probably be some that are removed, some that are added.
Right, and so we'll need a policy behind that where we say, you know, things are updated quarterly and the requests, departments made ad hoc update requests, just to get more formalized as I think next year we'll have some interesting discussions on how to recommend spending.
I would recommend even asking the department heads to come in and advocate for their equipment or project as
Right.
well.
Agreed?
So the way Westminster did it, they had a spreadsheet like you were talking about, and it was the most complicated spreadsheet I've ever seen in
Did it
my
come
whole
from
life.
UMass?
Holy crow, I have no idea where it came from, it was there when I got there. But it had all the drop downs, and there was only one person that understood it and worked it. But they did have, prior to the budget, invited all the departments to come in and say, justify everything. And then the committee of only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would go through and they would create the prioritization. So I don't know where from Westboro the project priority would come from, because I think the world is run by those who show up, and I would never want to put one
Yeah, I mean,
asking for it. But I also don't like the very bottom of this, because it's not up to us to decide where the funding
Right.
comes from.
I think this is a great start. And
Well,
I think
George a little bit, not the rest of us.
I think we can certainly modify, improve to our needs.
Make it our own.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Take the word Westboro off, change the picture, it's ours.
Yeah, we're getting a new ambulance. So I don't know if we have to, I think we should reconvene at some point. I have some work to do on this. I know, George, you expressed some interest in also working on that, so
Yeah.
if others want to help. But I think this is a great start, and we need to reconvene anyway to modify and approve the final list that we want to provide to the mayor.
And I would say just from a timing perspective, let's meet and approve the template and the process, and then I think it would be proper to do Dane's request, you know, send out the request with this new template.
You gonna do that for the annual update or this most recent?
Well, honestly, if you have another meeting in 3 months, it's like October, free cash is gonna be certified in October, November, historically, so.
Typically, that's when we start or end the process.
So-
No, it should start earlier.
So the ordinance stipulates that department requests, project requests for funding have to be in by November 1st. I think we then take that and the committee moves, and I believe, obviously, I think you want to have it in by budget season prior to the budget. I think over the years, that's gotten a little bit lax. So, I mean, for me, if I'm sending out the email to all the departments, you know, hey, it's capital improvement time again, it's gonna be starting, 2 months in advance of November, so October, September, end of August, I mean, we're pretty much already there.
I really look forward to that email, by the way.
But do you want to establish this process prior to looking at the city list? Is that what you're saying?
I think we start fresh next year with this information to make better informed decisions with an actual budget that we could look at and prioritize. I think it's an ask, right? But I think it's work that shouldn't be too much, like, the departments know what they need, right? They have the list, you don't need a picture necessarily, but I think,
Pictures are nice.
pictures are nice, and I think it's just good, I think it would just be good practice, if there's a new department head that comes in, this list is there, and they can kind of pick up and run.
So I think Dane, to Dane's point, I think that email, we should establish the fact that they're gonna have to come to this meeting.
Yeah,
I think that's part of the
If they
communication now.
want to.
Well, if they want,
If they don't
If
get
they-
advocated for.
If they want their
Yeah.
projects on the list, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask a department head to come in to present their justification for the 4 or 5 projects or more or less that they have on the list. They may be able to convey the need more urgently face-to-face than just a piece of paper.
So I'd be happy to, I think a month or so is a decent time frame for us to put together, put together a best first stab at the template and the process. So I
Yep.
propose that, we reconvene in early September to approve, with the purpose of approving the template and process for FY 26, thank you, Mike.
So all this can be shared by email because it's just administrative work, there's no decisions being done.
Right.
Right.
So if you guys shoot something through the committee,
If we're emailing as a whole as a committee, it's not, we're not violating quorum.
As long as we're not debating it, right?
we're not voting on anything, it's an
Okay.
administrative form.
All right. I mean, these is.
I mean, you
not
can-
my cup of tea.
It could be sent to us, but then we'd have to come to the committee to approve. Correct.
Any approval should be done.
Yeah, you're not.
We shouldn't be debating it, but they can provide us information.
We can
But
come
if
up
the
with
form
a.
goes out, hey, you know what, I think we should add this and delete that.
We
That's
can
just an
create a
administrative
draft
process.
with input from everybody, have it on the agenda and vote on it.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, so I think our next meeting has two things, one approving the process and template, and the second would be setting the timeline for requests for FY 26.
I should also add that in Westminster, they had a massive pile of cash with which to fund the capital improvement list, so it was much easier.
And I don't think the conversation's over about the $8 million and how exactly things get moved, but I don't think it's for this meeting, so.
No.
Yeah.
So we had a motion that we approved. We're gonna add school departments, a few new things to the list. Dean had begun to make a motion about, and I don't know if we went anywhere with it, about getting updates from all the departments. We didn't vote on that.
Yeah, I put a motion up for that.
I'd second
Yeah,
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Only discussion of after the template and process are made, or?
I think-
Or right now?
I think right now.
Right now?
prior.
Oh, right now, okay, I support that, yeah.
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay. So
Aye.
double checking to see if anyone else has any update.
Yeah, that's
So-
only fair.
I will, within the next day or two, send out an email to everybody looking for updates. I think we'll take those, I'll get a list, draft revision to the master list, I'll send it out, and I guess we can, at the next meeting, take a vote on that to finalize it and ship it off to the mayor. Is that how this is gonna work?
Is a month out too long, or is that?
My only, in a matter of fairness, I know this was urged due to some timing and funding, I wouldn't say constraints, but from the school department, so if other departments also have particular funding, like backstops they're working against, I think maybe we get together in a week or two and have a very brief meeting to do the same thing, just out of fairness.
I would just say, the school department, and I know where I sit now, but the school department is unique. It's half of the city budget, and we fund a lot of our own capital improvements. If there are any other capital improvements being funded, it's within the city budget. So
Yours is going out
what I'm
for-
saying is this,
But you're a department of the city budget.
Right.
Dane's funding his own capital.
from a line item of $38 million.
I know, but it
But
doesn't.
what I'm saying is that this $1.25 million is active projects that we're funding out of our own money. I don't know that any other department has that ability.
Dave, Warner, Sue.
Yeah,
Water
well,
and sewer.
any enterprise kind of.
But then again,
The salt sheds being.
water and sewer is unto itself.
Just like you're saying, school departments.
I'm not saying we're unto ourselves, I'm just saying we're unique.
I'm just,
I
out
think every
of
department should be.
equity, I'm just saying, in 2 weeks, I don't think it's a burden. We might get no
Yeah.
updates back, and the meeting would be canceled, right, so.
So, okay,
Well, why don't we just see what the response is, right?
I will try
And
and.
if he gets a massive response, then you can reach out and say, hey, we really need to look at this, we've got a significant response.
My email will indicate that we're intending to meet in 2 weeks. If you have any changes or reprioritization of the projects you previously provided, get them to me as soon as possible. Otherwise, they won't be considered,
Yep.
or they won't be added to the revised list.
Oh, man, all in 2 weeks.
Because ultimately, what we need to identify side projects for $4 million, school project,
Negative.
$4 million citywide.
Why? Take the
Don't
notes
we have
out.
$8 million?
Well,
No,
they're
you
on,
don't have any money.
right, they're on, I guess the bottom line is they're on the list. If we take the new ones and add them to the list, the mayor can then recommend them as projects to be
Right.
completed.
So
I think that's our only part in this.
if it helps Director Buer, the only reason I supported adding these items to the list is because the $8 million isn't with us yet. It's in a loan in the city, but for the elementary school, not for being split out like the mayor has
Okay.
proposed.
Well, that was my understanding of being in a meeting, that's what I thought was discussed, so.
How that $8 million came to be was discussed, but to my understanding, the money has not moved accounts.
No.
So it's just adding things to the capital improvements list right now that, I'd certainly be more curious to understand how that money gets moved and when,
Okay.
right? But, that's why we're just kind of.
So I would suggest we meet in 2 weeks on August 7th at 10 a.m. Does that work?
That's 2 weeks.
Would 9 a.m. work?
I can, yeah, 9 o'clock. I mean, you can go earlier if people are so inclined.
That's 1 week,
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, that's one.
What else today?
30.
Oh, shit, yeah, right, excuse me.
I'm gonna replay that over again.
Let's make it August 14th.
I won't be here, but I don't think
I
it's.
think the goal of that meeting is just to okay the list.
Yeah, I agree.
What time?
10:59.
Whatever suits you.
Yeah, 9 would be great.
I have a 10 o'clock, so.
It'll be quick, 9 a.m.
It should be fairly
It
quick.
should be.
It's fine.
So August 14th, 9 a.m. Jen, does that work for you?
Yeah.
All right. I don't care about you, Dave.
Will you send out a meeting?
I will send out, yeah, a meeting.
And hopefully these will get more formal as we go.
I'll try to add my input before I leave.
Yeah, absolutely, email it to me. So that was everything on the agenda, anything else anyone wants to discuss? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
So,
Yeah, what you said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.